Hey, hi everyone. A very good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. This is our second session in the series Molecule Makers by Scimplify. Uh, this is somewhere where we invite guests from the industry to talk about latest trends that are happening in the specialty chemical space. And we discuss a lot where we can all learn and understand how is it that we can grow India as an ecosystem. I'll give a quick introduction about myself. I am Hersh Manek. I am one of the founding team members at Scimplify. Uh, Scimplify is a company that was started last year in the entire value chain of specialty chemicals, right up from research and development uh, to scale up at pilot level and then commercially. The entire value chain is what Scimplify does. We have our R&D lab in Hyderabad in Genome Valley, which is our center of innovation, where we focus on import substitutes, different route of synthesis, figure out on specialty products that we can manufacture in India. And this is with the entire theme of China plus one and how India can grow as a destination for specialty chemicals. We at Scimplify are extremely bullish of what India can do in the decade to come. Uh, Let me give a warm invite to our guest today, Mr. Vilas Sahasrabuddhey. I would like to believe that everyone here on call knows him really well. Mr. Vilas, again, needs no introduction, but I'll try and do a quick one. He's been in the specialty chemicals and especially in the flavors and fragrance industry for the last 25 years. He's someone who's worked with very, very large organizations such as Firmenich, Simrise, SH Kelkar, and his last stint was being the CEO of Organica Aromatics, which is a Savinska group company. Mr. Vilas is here as a guest to talk on the F&F industry, on the innovation that is happening. And Mr. Vilas, in his capacity, is also a strategic a strategic advisor to us at Scimplify, helping us build the F&F vertical. Uh, I think let's get started without further ado. I hand it over to my co-host Nikita, who is my colleague. Let's pick up and let's hear some thoughts, and let's have a very engaging webinar. Thank you again, everyone, for joining.
Thank you, Harsh. So before we begin the session, I would just like to make a note. We would like to keep this interaction
Nikita, I think your internet is lagging a little bit.
Yeah.
Nikita, Nikita, can you hear us? Your internet is lagging. Let me just brief on what Nikita is trying to say.
So if anybody in the audience has
Nikita, can you just rejoin?
questions,
Your internet is lagging.
you
Let me
can
just give a quick brief.
questions.
So sorry for the technical snag. Let me just give a quick understanding of what Nikita was trying to say. We are wanting to keep this webinar very, very interactive. So would love for questions to be put on chat as we go through the next 30 to 45 minutes of the webinar. Please put your questions on chat on things that you would like to understand more, anything specific you would like to sort of, pose questions around and understand in a deeper fashion. Please use the chat box to share those questions. We will do Q&A towards the end after the webinar is over, and we will have a free flowing Q&A session where we will talk of the questions. Folks can unmute and ask questions on the spot as well. But yeah, would request if everyone can post their questions so we can have a good Q&A towards the end. Yeah, Nikita, is your internet stable now?
My internet is back now, so I'm back on the call. Sorry for the inconvenience.
Over to you.
Yes. Thank you, Harsh. Before we dive
like, we are importing everything which is available in the world and available around the world, and we are just serving the market. I'm talking about the manufacturing part of it. So there is a huge opportunity. There is a massive window which is available for India in terms of product innovation. Now, when I say product innovations, I'm not necessarily talking about, inventing a molecule. It is still possibly little too far for us. I'm talking about a zone where, a specialty chemical zone, not essentially the commodities again. Of course, India must look at commodities at some point of time. But let us focus more on the specialties where uh, uh, obviously we are not doing enough on those specialties, but the core research of those specialties, which is absolutely not happening in India. Of course, there is a growing sense now. We successfully implemented this strategy during my last tenure as a CEO, like what was mentioned. But just taking a cue from there, I mean, there is a tremendous opportunity if we build our own set of specialty molecules now. Moving forward, obviously, idea would be, but again, let me again go back more backward integrated here. Why I'm saying there is a great need of innovation is like, we build in fantastic chemistries in India. We have fabulous brains. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But the specialties what we build, again, the raw materials which are required for the specialty, again, we are dependent majorly on imports, again on majorly on China. So that is where we are not actually completing that entire value chain system. So when you are depending upon the raw material, which is again coming from abroad, again from China, then again you have a very limited control over the kind of research or kind of the progress you want to make on certain models. So the innovation has to start with specialties, reach to the go a little backward and get into the. I can maybe cite a few raw materials. I think it will still make sense without offending anything, like something like cecitral, something like alpha caprylic acid, aldehyde, or maybe even styrene for that matter. I mean, India is the second largest producer of mineral alcohol in the world, and we are still depending upon the China for the core raw material. So I'm talking about that completion of that value chain where we are actually building the specialties, we are building the end products, but at the same time we are looking to get into those raw materials. Uh, why we are possibly not able to do that as that not that we are unaware of the global market, but possibly because of the um, that as a classic mindset. Like for example, if we even know the global requirement, Indian manufacturers are still not possibly I would say evolved or not ready to take up that challenge to serve the world. They are partly trying to fulfill the global requirements and be happy within that particular. I mean, this is the value chain I will put it. Build the specialty chemicals, get into the backward integration, get those raw materials which we are importing. Unless we do that, I think we are not actually able to serve the world the way they expect us to serve them.
So, Vilas sir, I would like to ask you one question here. So we understand the market trend that a lot of companies are trying to inculcate the China plus one strategy. But as an Indian company or a startup, what would be the low hanging opportunities, right? So trying to get the raw material in India, that is one thing. But what would be the low hanging immediate opportunities in terms of innovation within India?
I think it is again back to just as I said very briefly, but I can elaborate a bit on that. The low hanging opportunity is uh, build the specialities, not getting much into the commodities, build the specialities. I mean, I would still refer the Scimplify zone where we are building this entire setup. I mean, that those are definitely the low hanging fruits. And again, I mean, let us understand why I'm saying it. Is because, there are certain specialty raw materials which are done by only one or two MNCs around the world. I'm talking about that zone where let us understand this. A particular MNC sitting in wherever it is in the world, they are they have built a certain raw material which is purchased by the other MNC, the other global players, you know, which is something they don't like to do, but they have to do it. So taking up looking at those specialty molecules in the world is, I think, that's how the India should look at right now, rather than just getting into the business model where, of course, this the capex is huge. Of course, we not like as easy as possibly I'm sounding, but yes, rather than going into the backward integrated zone, and why we can sustain in this model is because these products are not very price sensitive. So even if to begin it, if we are dependent on imports of the raw materials of these specialties, we can still survive because of the, uh, I would say the margins, the gross, and that we can still have a very good space for specialty. So the certain specialties, you look at 5, 6, or 7 of those, maybe a couple of very big boys sitting in the products. We can discuss about these products. This is the do this. I think it's very important that we build our own chemistry, because maybe the chemistry which is something available may not suit the Indian way of work. We have our own facilities, we create our own industries, but within whatever we have, I think we must look at these specialties which are not really price sensitive. Still, we can depend on exports and build a sort of by anybody in India.
All right, sir. All right. So, sir, another thing, another aspect of looking at this is also, I understand that there are some geopolitical, logistical issues that surround India, right, on today's date. So, how do you think we can tackle that, right, when it comes to exporting out of India?
Yeah. See, this is really nice actually what you asked. This is very critical also for the sustainability of this our businesses also. See, look at what we mean by geopolitical issue. Uh, we import maybe 7 times more than what we export to China, for example. So now, if you only concentrate on the logistics, to get a shipment or a vessel from China to India is extremely difficult. It's a nightmare. But to get a China, because if there are 100 container loads landing on the Indian port every day, there are only 7 or 8 are going back to China field. So these are the geopolitical scenarios we must factor in. So what I'm saying is the export from India to China will be extremely convenient, and it will not be expensive at all. But a bigger issue, I'll say, the geopolitical issue, we are not like very friendly in terms of exporting our goods to the Western world, say Europe or USA for that matter. The sailing time is about 45 days. There's so many issues. So what I would like, the way I would look at it is, having some presence, say, in Middle East, say particularly in Dubai, where we have the what we call as a free trade zones. So having a hub there, produce everything in India and use Middle East as your export hub. If we can actually get this equation right, and we have a tremendous scope to export everything, because see, it's all about your response time also. The world is not going to wait for you for life. The way India is converted, it's extremely time consuming. It's very management using we all know that it's an extremely friendly trade zone, and it's a free trade zone, particularly for geopolitical advantages, the facilities what we already have. I'm not sure if
Thank you for answering that. I have one more question, sir. So, as a general trend, we have seen that, especially in the flavors and fragrances industry, if a molecule or if a product is proven to be successful in the market, we've seen a lot of other companies, they try to, develop the same product, right? rather than trying to focus on new products. So why is it that way in the market, and why cannot we consider innovation in that aspect? So do you have any thoughts on that, sir?
But yes, I mean, this is again a very common phenomenon in India. And again, the root of this problem lies again in uh, the lack of the preparedness in terms of research. You're absolutely right. I mean, you, like someone with great efforts, built a certain product, and what happens is, that product is successful, and suddenly you will see 5 manufacturers within India, and not that the other 4 has done a core research on that. I mean, they always choose to take a lot of other routes to, just copy that product and do that. But again, the answer lies in the complete lack, or quite a lack of, the interest in innovations. Uh, I can cite a lot of examples about of products like this, but I guess maybe I don't know that maybe we'll leave it for the another for discussion. Uh, I have faced this personally. There are some molecules which were built as possibly only the second manufacturer in India. I'm talking about 6, 7 years back, and what the next morning is okay, there are 2 more who are coming in with absolutely no research. So again, actually, let's come to the topic. The innovation opportunities India are plenty. Innovative brains in India are in abundance. But the what is lacking is the preparedness, the willingness to do it. So that is the basic problem. Not that I'm suggesting, and not that is a blanket statement. Of course, some companies like they are now touching say 800 crores, 1,000 crores, 2,000 crores. They are putting some money on research. But unlike a company, let me not name it, but I have worked with that company. The 10% of the global revenue, a company in Indian terms should be of the size of say, or even say global terms should be a 10 billion company. 10% of that revenue is going into research. Just imagine the scale at which the research is happening globally, and we know so we are starting. We have already started doing a bit of a research, and some of our products are successful. But back to what you asked, yes, I mean there is a replication of product more than innovative, and that answers your question. That one does some product successfully, and you suddenly see a few guys around you who are doing the same product at all.
Right, sir. Sir, would you also like to throw some light on the movement, from synthetic products to natural products? Is this something that we see as a, growing trend within the market?
Oh yes, that is something. Yeah, see, I mean, with synthetic is what obviously that's how the perfumery or the any industry starts. So everyone is doing a lot of organic chemistry. But Nikita, I would like to put something in between natural synthetics and naturals, which is a hugely growing research. It's a massively growing research around the world, which is what we call as a biotechnology or a biotechnology research. India has started on that research. We have extremely competent brains on doing a biotechnology research in India. But unfortunately, there are very few or no takers for that kind of a research. So in between synthetic organic chemistry and naturals, I mean that is a zone which is it's a very happening zone around the world. I mean because see, I mean the reason is world is moving towards sustainability. The Western world is talking about sustainability, the carbon emissions, and how sustainable, biodegradable your molecules are. So to go there, we have to. There's a space which is called as biotechnology, which everyone should look at. Back to naturals, yes. I mean that is where eventually the future lies, because at some day people will have to consider that to not switch. I would say because organic chemistry will stay, synthetic molecules will always stay, but the more and more focus will be on the natural, and it will come through oils, the isolates from the oils, or whichever way you can do it. But yes, natural is a massive future. India again having a wonderfully, like we are a hub of like we are basically, India is a hub of farmers. I mean we have a wonderfully fertile land. We can build a lot of natural oils within India, But apart from, I would believe, the spice zone, India is not doing much into oils. Of course, menthol is, we are the largest in menthol in the world. But besides, yes, I mean, a lot of oils, the newer oils, the expensive oils are happening in the Western part. India is doing a lot of spice oil. But eventually, having a natural replacement of most of the synthetics, what we are doing right now, that is where the world will head. Not maybe immediately. We are already started moving towards biotechnology. We have started moving towards the fermentation technology. Maybe next 10 years, and will start moving towards natural. But which will be an extremely good zone. Research can start right now.
All right, sir. So we have a good understanding about the movement in the natural segment. So now I have a very specific question for you, sir. There is this product called Evernil, and I think we already
You said
Evernil.
ever.
Ever, yes, yes, yes. So earlier, I think 6 months back, only there was an Indian player who used to sell this product at around 4,000 rupees a kg, and now if you see, there are Chinese competitors already into the market, and they have really eroded the price. Right now, the selling price of China is equivalent to the cost of an Indian player, which is I think around 21 to 2200. So there is a lot of I think price pressure from the Chinese players in the market. So how do we tackle this situation? This is a very specific example, but in general, how do we tackle this price pressure that is in the market right now?
I understand what you. This is a very classic case of a molecule which was doing extremely well with Indian manufacturers. It was going several tons, and suddenly it exactly it happened as you said it. But again, Nikita, the reason lies in maybe the first part what we discussed with the beginning of this conversation is are the raw materials which are used for this particular chemistry. If my understanding is right, not that I'm a chemist, but if it is maybe protonic acid or methyl protonate, the raw materials which are required for these kind of chemistries, we are not even thinking of making those raw materials in India. So I mean the global suppliers will always use this that they are not competitive on the raw materials, but they are extremely competitive on the end products beginning with that raw material. This is obviously the business strategy, and this is happening to a lot of other molecules. Like if you look at the sandal chemistry or the raw materials which are like they are controlling the raw material, so they are definitely not like very friendly on the RM price. But so this is exactly what China has done. This product was around $54 to $60 in India. I guess it's not even $30 now. So look at and it all happened in what I guess 6 to 9 months. So the sudden drop is because they sensed it, because they sense that they are making a raw material which India is buying and then converting into a derivative where they are making a lot of money. They come up with the end product and see how they, and that is classic China. Like if they want to do that, they will, again, saying this, what I said earlier, they know exactly the size of the market. And their intention is always to saturate the size of the market, not doing the volume which is convenient to them. This is very important point Indian manufacturers must understand. You can't be looking at the volume which is in your comfort zone. They look at the volume which is actually the requirement. So, for example, just to simplify it, say we Indian sitting here, we know that the certain requirement is 100, we'll still look at 5 or 10. China would start looking at it at 60. So the scale is extremely critical. So if they start at 60, obviously they'll be very competitive, and having a complete control over the backward integrated raw material, that answers all the questions.
All right, sir. So, do you think, sir, that the Indian government policies or the incentives that are currently there are not at par with Chinese government policies, because there is a backing by the government in China, which is why China is able to compete, at such low pricing. Do you think that is the case? Okay.
Definitely it is. Definitely it is. So, I mean, the policies, I mean, you frame a policy and, it looks like, we spoke about even a few years back, we spoke about a one window counter. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't exist, but that's just a policy which possibly was on paper. But the regulations, the this part in India it has to get simplified a lot. It has to get simplified a lot. But see, none of these projects are backed by the government unless you are putting in, say, maybe a tune of, say, maybe a billion or two into a project. Otherwise, these projects are not even having any resonance at the government level. The smaller projects, the mid-sized projects are not even recognized by the government. So obviously, there's a lot of challenges we face in terms of compliances and the regulatory. So these are the things. Of course, I mean, the pollution is like the air pollution, water pollution is another aspect which adds a lot of burden on the price of the product. But definitely government policies has to be eased out. There is a lot of work which is going on. This is, I can say with a bit of an authority, there's a lot of work which is going on. There are certain industries which are giving some subsidies, like if you go to, say, for example, Dahej is a wonderful SEZ where you have some, centralized systems. So some industries are working well, but besides that, I guess it's more about the state policies than the central policies. But yes, I mean, the states are coming up with certain incentives in certain parts of promotion. I heard it's the same is happening in Jammu now. But yes, besides this, certain pockets, the Indian, I will say, mm, this is not like, Indian atmosphere, like what we can say, it's not very friendly to, do a product or a business which is, prices.
All right, sir. So I think we have a couple of questions in the chat box already. So I'd
Yeah,
like to take one question
if you
from the audience.
can possibly read it for me, can
Yeah,
you?
sure, sure. So we have a question from Sahil. How do we stand a chance to take advantage of the expected rise in domestic demand to replace imports and manufacture and source locally?
No, can you please say it again? What was that? Can you please repeat the question?
Sure, sure. I'll repeat it. So we have a question from Sahil. He's asking, how do we stand a chance to take advantage of the expected rise in the domestic demand to replace the imports and manufacture and sourcing locally?
Yeah, well, that's something we are trying to do. See, Indian demands are definitely increasing, but as I said, the imports which are happening in India are not essentially done by the consumer, the actual users of those products. It is generally done by the traders who are sitting in India, and they bring those products to India in a very huge volume, and then they distribute it. So now, if you choose to do those products in India, again, there is a tremendous sense of competition. Again, let us talk about China. If we are, it is to an extent that, if the product is coming from China, we don't even attempt that. Though we know that the consumption, the requirement in India is massive. But you said what should be the low-hanging fruit? We spoke earlier. Then again, I would say rather than again getting into this zone which is extremely competitive, let us look at a zone where which are the product coming from, say, Europe, for example, or the other part of the world. That again should be a low-hanging fruit. They are not like as price sensitive again as the products what we receive from China. So again, back to those products, do a proper research, build those chemistries. Again, that is how it should start. Because again, looking at China and something which is coming in a shipload, and then if you try to build in the capex in India, it's going to take some time. But yes, to cater to the Indian demands, if you identify the specific molecules which are coming from other part of the world, uh, uh, I'm right now, unfortunately, discounting China on this because of the sheer volumes we are buying from them. But yes, there are a lot of products which are coming from the other part of the world. Pick up those molecules and we can serve a lot of Indian requirements. I guess yes. I mean that is exactly how you have positioned yourself as Scimplify.
All right, sir. So we also have a follow-up question by Sahil.
Yeah.
So he is asking, can we also try to understand industry integration strategies in specialty chemicals?
Industry integration strategy. Uh, Is Sahil there on, if I may know a little more exactly about what
Yes.
you want to
So,
talk about? If you can unmute yourself and maybe talk to me, Sahil. Hello?
I think Sahil is not on the call. Maybe we can take the next question then.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have another question from Ashish. So due to US-China conflict, the path of India has become easier to enter into the market. How do you see India grabbing this opportunity, or are we lagging?
This is a very good one. You actually mentioned this earlier. Yes, I mean India must look at USA as a market. Must. For the simple reason that again the only competitor or the bigger competitor sitting just as a neighbor in China. So if you look at the export pattern from India to USA and China to USA, China to America, there is a 25% duty on the. So even if at the X works price, if China is competitive there, by the time it lands in USA, the price is not competitive at all. Against, if at all we can create an alternate. Obviously, they are still importing from China because we have not yet created an alternate. But yes, I mean, we must utilize, I mean, this is not just with USA. Let me say it, Japan, Australia. I mean, these are the countries where, we can actually look at, because we have a tendency of looking at Europe all the time. And Europe has created a lot of barriers, but that's same for India and China. So there's like nothing too much to choose from that. But if you look at USA, if you look at Brazil, if you look at Japan and Australia, these are obviously the friendly countries. Geopolitically, we are extremely well connected, and the markets are reasonably good, particularly in USA and the Latin part of America, the South America. So if you look into these markets, yes, I mean this what you said is this is extremely workable.
All right, sir. So there's one last question in the chat box. What is the scope of the captive raw materials in F&F industry?
FNF industry existence is on the captives. Let us first understand what are the captives. As a chemical manufacturer, I mean, you don't have to keep captives, but captives are particularly built by the ones who are doing the flavors and fragrance blending. That is to give a signature to the kind of blend they do. I mean, any MNC or any Indian company, if they are doing a sizable fragrance and flavor blending, they build their own captives, which are obviously not available to anybody, right? So these are the captives which give a certain signature, a certain impression to their end product. But even as a fragrance manufacturer, I'll tell you, I have operated on these zones once with a big MNC in the USA. It is for the collaborative research. That again, a huge opportunity which are available for the Indian manufacturers. Like, of course, the cost of manufacturing, or even for that matter, the cost of research is very high in the Western world. So, to create a sort of a collaboration with the Western manufacturers, the global MNCs, and to build a captive in collaboration, that is again a huge opportunity which is available. So definitely yes. I mean, though we are not actually using captives, we can be a partner in building captives for the MNC. Besides, there is a not exactly related to the question, but that is something which is workable. Is another option is like a lot of these MNCs are manufacturing certain product for very long, but their R&D pipeline is very thick. A lot of products are coming into their production cycle. So there is another big opportunity for Indian manufacturers, like the products which these MNCs want to get out of their pipeline. And they are looking at a sustainable, long-term, reliable partner who can build those products along with them, for them, and with them in India. So that is also another opportunity which I guess we all need to explore. And that's a huge opportunity for this zone also. So besides building the captives, this is another opportunity, and this is a relatively it can be a faster realization, because the product is already built, and then you have to just be a reliable partner for these MNCs sitting in it.
All right, sir. So I think that brings us to an end of the questions from the chat box. However, I would like to open the discussion to everybody. So if anybody has any question, they can unmute themselves and strike a conversation. You can ask the questions to Vilas, sir. So anybody has a question?
Yeah, I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
So this is something that I think I've discussed with Vilas sir before as well. But I think for the larger audience, right? I think one of the things that I have seen, there are a few specialities that are there uh, where India was a primary manufacturer, but in the last 6 to 9 months, we have actually seen that China has come in and started dumping these products, so as to speak, aroma ingredients, and this is somewhere where it has become, in my understanding, unviable to even manufacture in India. Take the example of Evernil. As per my understanding, maybe just one manufacturer, two manufacturers make it in India. Otherwise, it is just now something that is completely imported from China, given the price points of 2100, 2200. Uh, Firstly, is there something that we can do to stop this, Vilas sir? Is there something that the Indian ecosystem must be focusing on? I think it is. You mentioned a few things around spending more on R&D, keeping the pipeline, etc. But how do we ensure? Because this seems to be, and if I talk on the overall specialty chemical market, given how there has been a little bit of a slump on the pharma side, uh, a lot of China manufacturers are looking at other avenues where they can utilize their capacity, FNF being one of them. And they're getting into these products, which are, I would say sort of specialities, semi-specialities, and actually flooding the market. Do you think this is viable? What can India do to sort of sustain this? Is there a fear that they may get into a lot more just to sort of get rid of the Indian manufacturers and then hike up the prices?
That has always been the case. I mean, that has always been the case. Take a classic case of alpha caprylic aldehyde. I mean, there was a manufacturer in India. They tried to do as much as they could, but again, of course, China being the till that time the only manufacturer, they dropped their prices to an extent that, of course, that manufacturer completely become unsustainable. But again, back to what actually you asked, Hersh, and I spoke again briefly about it. Is the classic case of Avon. There are many products we can cite. Now that we have taken that name, we are still sticking to that name. Is again going back to the key raw materials which are used. Unless you have a control over those raw materials, there's absolutely, you'll always have that. That's another reason that you are not doing the raw materials yourself and you are getting into the specialty. So the manufacturers are always skeptical about increasing the capacities even of that specialty and not putting too much of a capex, because there is always that sense of apprehension. They are very skeptical that someday if I don't get this raw material, I'm totally usually dependent on China for this raw material. What if I don't get it the next day? What if I get it at maybe a few dollars more the next day? So it all boils down to that again, that how much of that raw material you are controlling. Unfortunately, we are not controlling majority of, let's say, four basic key raw materials we are not controlling at all. And that is where actually the problem, benzaldehyde, styrene, alpha caprylic aldehyde, etc. We are not controlling these raw materials globally. And I mean, look at BSF. I mean, let's take names. They're great. 80,000, 85,000 tons is the capacity. So I'm talking about this kind of government. Not that I'm suggesting that someone in India should take up that 85,000. So point is doing it in a sustainable manner, that be sustainable, at least do as much as you want to consume it and then grow from there. So unless you are having a control over your raw material, part control or some control over this is, there will always be a fear of losing it to China someday. And in that fear, we are not putting enough capacities, enough capex to grow as much as you want to grow. Yeah.
So, sir, we have one more question in the chat by Hersh Modi. So, do you see an opportunity for domestic players to manufacture FNF molecules for which the patents are about to expire in near future? Would this be a sustainable model to do of doing business?
It's wonderful. See, I mean, of course, I mean, we all are aware of, the patents, when are they being filed and when are they going to get expired, right? This is again a classic model the world operates. Uh, Actually, it's high time we should be talking about it a little more. But to pick up those molecules, what is a great advantage? I was talking about being a second or a third manufacturer of a molecule. I was talking about it some time back. This is exactly what I mean. When you are actually looking at the expiry of patent, you build that chemistry, you keep that product ready, and when you actually launch that product, because again the advantage and why there is a very quick acceptance if we get into this kind of a business model is because that product is invariably as a first manufacturer is done by some or one of the MNCs. Again, it is back to the same model where that MNC is dictating terms. They are selling at a price of, of course, there's a lot of premium while that product is in under patent. So obviously they lose the premium only when it's near to the expiry or after expiry. So building that molecule ready, keeping that molecule ready, and creating a quick alternative to the one who has actually built that molecules. That is a great entry point, and it has been we have successfully done that earlier 5 or 6 products only as a second manufacturer in the world. And trust me, eventually we ended up supplying the original manufacturer of that product. So we were the second. We eventually ended up being the key supplier who actually invented the molecule. So this is the complete cycle of this, business. Yeah, I mean, you focus on the molecules, you keep a look at, keep tracking about the molecules, your, next potential molecules, build those molecules. So that's what I'm saying. Investing on R&D is definitely critical. Thankfully, in India, I think the startups or the new businesses, they don't necessarily need to, they can if they wish to, but they don't need to invest in the capex because there are lovely plants, lovely facilities which are available around us, and we can always use those facilities to the great advantage of both those who have built the facilities and those who actually want to build certain molecules. So not necessarily you need to get into a capex, and you can still build those wonderful molecules, provided you are taking a lead in building those chemistries yourself.
All right, sir. So, are there any further questions by anybody? All the questions from the chat box are done. I think Ashok is trying to ask something, but he's on mute. Ashok, are you there? All right, I think. All right, so we are done with all the questions. So, Vilas sir, do you have any closing remarks that any message that you would like to close this session with?
Well, of course, I mean, having worked with the two of the biggest MNCs and two very big Indian companies, coming from a very traditional business background, like as a where you start to till the CEO. I mean that was the journey, but the kind of space this startup. I mean, again particularly I would like to talk about Scimplify or that zone. I would wish that of course you do great, but more players come into this zone and occupy this space with a completely different mindset the way you guys actually operate. Very quick decision making, very quick operations, and the way so industry needs more and more of this. And even it can still accommodate maybe Simplify is possibly the first in this space having own research innovation. So there's a space for another 50, 100 of this sort who can actually, I would invite them come to this space and there's a tremendous opportunity available for everyone who is willing to get into this space of practices and play.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your closing remarks. And I think with that, we would like to end the session here. We are almost, done in the time as well. Thank you so much to the audience as well for participating in this session. Thank you for your time. And just one more thing to note here, the recording of the session will be available on the LinkedIn social media platform. And also we'll be coming up with more, related subjects, topics around specialty chemicals. So you can stay updated on our from our LinkedIn page. And yeah, with that, I think we can close this session. And thank you, Vilas sir, for this wonderful, insightful session today. It was great having you today.
It was entirely my pleasure, Nikita. It was entirely my pleasure, Hersh. But thank you, both of you. Thank you, Scimplify, and my lovely audience.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much for being with us for almost an hour. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thanks.